to say thank you to all those MPs that signed the nomination papers, all 36 of them, for having the courage to step out and say, we think Labour Party members and supporters all over the country should have a real choice in this election when they can know that there is a candidate who is putting forward a collective view that we want a different economic policy and we want a different international policy for our party and our movement. And we want to recognise that in defeat comes strength. In defeat comes strength to oppose this budget, to oppose the welfare cuts and oppose so much else that these Tories are doing. So we started this campaign only 4 weeks and 1 day ago. It is amazing the numbers of people that have come out. On Sunday afternoon in Newcastle, at 2 days' notice, 250 people came to a meeting in the Irish Centre in Newcastle. The same in Swansea, the same in Cardiff, the same all over the country. I've already taken part in 16 different hustings debates, and there's only another 24 to go. So I'm beginning to develop the arguments. But by being in this contest, we have a chance and an opportunity to put forward something different. Now, whatever the result on September the 12th, and I'm making no predictions, but we're doing well. Whatever the result on September the 12th, we are a much stronger band of socialists brought together because of the kind of society we want to live in. And we're going to stay together. We're going to stay together to change policies in the Labour Party. We're going to change policies in society. We're going to stay together to support people who are struggling to bring about a fairer and more decent society. Why is it in modern Britain 100 of the richest people own the same as a third of the entire population? Why are 1 million people relying on food banks? Why are there thousands of people sleeping on the streets every night? And what's the Tory solution? To cut corporation tax and cut benefits. Now this budget is vile and wrong, and I for one, together with John McDonnell and many other MPs, particularly the new MPs elected for the first time on May the 7th, are going to be voting against the welfare cap and against the welfare benefit changes that have been put forward by the Tories. Frankly, the entire Labour Party should be voting against that, and I hope over the coming days we will get that message across with what we're trying to achieve there. The second big area is on international policy. Now, there are many people here who are far too young to remember February the 15th, 2003. Hands up those who are too young to remember it. Oh my God, there's too many hands, we can't do it. But that day, 1 million people and more marched through London to show their opposition to an illegal war in Iraq. I was one of those. I was there, and I will forever be there opposing that illegal war, as the rest of us are. It was wrong. It's resulted in massive costs, thousands of deaths, and terrible damage all over the world and to our own party and our own movement. I want a foreign policy that does not depend on us having nuclear weapons and the ability to destroy the rest of the planet. I want to have the kind of foreign policy South Africa, who's got rid of nuclear weapons. Why? Because they want to live in a secure, nuclear-free world. I don't want us to have a foreign policy that depends on following whoever the US president is, whatever war they want to go to. Because we see the consequences of those wars. The consequences of the growth of ISIL, the consequences of the 2 million refugees from Syria, the consequences of those desperate people dying in the Mediterranean trying to gain a place of safety. We are surely a movement that is concerned about humanity and justice worldwide as well as we are about our own society. And so we should be pursuing an international policy that takes all those things on board rather than the other way round. a policy for human rights, a policy for justice, not a policy for war. So our movement is about educating people. Think of the history of how great changes came about. Those that marched in London in the 19th century were abused, beaten, trampled down because they were Chartists. They won 50 years later pretty well everything they were demanding. Those that had the vision of rights and votes for women before the First World War eventually won by their determination and their bravery. Those that had a vision in the desperate days of the 1920s and 1930s, after the defeat of the general strike, of a society where there was healthcare as a human right, free at the point of use. They won that, not that many years later. So my message is, as Tony Benn often reminded me, that political change comes from popular movements, comes from people. It doesn't come from MPs sitting around a table in the tea room of the House of Commons saying, equality, that'd be a good idea. Human rights, brilliant. No, it comes because of popular movements outside. So surely it's time for our movement, our labour movement, to rediscover its roots, the strength of trade unions, not treating trade unions like an embarrassing uncle who turns up every Christmas and you can't wait for him to go. Instead, trade unions as part of our community and part of our society. So when we were at the Durham Miners' Gala on Saturday, fantastic crowd there, fantastic spirit there. There might not be too many pits left in Durham, Thatcher saw to that, but that spirit is there. The gala is bigger than ever, just as Tolpuddle next Sunday will be bigger than ever, just as Burston in September will be bigger than ever. There is a tradition on which we march, a tradition of community and solidarity. And so in London we have a different and a bigger city. Tomorrow morning is going to be a debate on housing in the House of Commons, housing in London. And I'll be quite simply saying this: we've had enough of the speculators coming into London to buy up property off book and keep it empty in order to use it as a cash machine for the future. We want council housing built as the best and safest and most secure form of housing for the vast majority of the population. We want regulation of the private rented sector, including rent control, so that we don't have the continued social cleansing of central London that is happening at the present time. And we want a society where young people in school don't come out without much hope in life because they live in bad housing. The school hasn't done as well as it might have done by them because it hasn't been properly funded or supported. We want to unleash that imagination, that hope and that energy in young people. So what's the message in this budget? Take away the remaining grant for the poorest students and force every young person who has the brilliance and inspiration to go to university to come out with a massive debt. My generation got free university education. Why can't this generation and subsequent generations have exactly that same chance? That generation in Parliament has no right to pull up the ladder on tomorrow's generation. This is our campaign. We, all of us together, are going to campaign on this. Campaign for a policy of social justice in Britain. Campaign for a policy of peace abroad. Campaign to reclaim our party for what it was always intended to be, a vehicle for the working class and poorest in our society to achieve justice and achieve something good. If we can, as we all do, defend the principle of a national health service free at the point of use for everyone as a human right, can't we do something else? Defend the principle of a society and a welfare state which has the same determination to make sure that nobody is destitute, nobody sleeps on the streets, everybody gets somewhere to live, and a society that doesn't turn round and blame any convenient minority, be they a black minority, an Irish minority, a strong society is a cohesive society. A strong society is one that does things together and achieves things together and looks for solutions, not blame culture. That's why I'll be voting against all the benefit cuts. That's why I'll be voting against the budget. That's why we together can and will change things for the better and give real hope to everyone in this country that the Tories are not forever. Socialism and goodness and decent ideas are our watchwords. They are what is forever. Thank you very much.